Hi, I'm Jared Davis. I'm an AFL content creator. I'm also a self-proclaimed AFL nerd, and I'm here to answer all of your most requested AFL questions. I feel like I'm going to need a lot of this. James has asked me, did Carlton waste Patrick Crips' prime? It's a great question, but that would depend on what you mean by waste. If we're talking about premiership success, or if we are talking about club success, then you would probably say yes. Paddy Crips being one of the best players of the last few decades, he's won 2 Brownlows, so he's had that individual success, but the team success has not come with him. And there's arguments to say that they've built a team around him to do that with the likes of Harry Mackay, Charlie Kernahan, Jacob Wiedering. Then there's the arguing side to that and the debate that's going on at the moment with, is Carlton too top heavy and is their depth lacking? Because as we know, a lot of great premiership teams have really good depth. It's not just about their top 6 players, it's actually about their top 25, even top 26, 27 oftentimes. Many people would say yes, but I don't think it's quite over yet. Maybe at the end of this year, we revisit the question. Tim has asked, what constitutes holding the ball? Honestly, at this point, no one knows. Cooper has asked, is Nick Dacos already the best player in the comp, or are we all just riding the hype wave? Well, that really depends on what you classify as the best player in the league. Just on the eye test, you have to say that he is at least one of the best players in the league, but the best player in the league, some people go more with the likes of a Marcus Bontempelli, even a Patrick Crips still. Offensively, he's one of the most damaging players in the league, one of the best kicks in the league, one of the highest IQs in the league. Defensively and physically, he's probably still maturing. So he's already in the top tier. Some people regard him as the best player in the league, but at the very least, he's going to define the next generation of AFL players. Stacey has asked, is Charlie Kernahan actually a better forward than Buddy at the same age? Now, Charlie Kernahan at the moment is 28 years old, but statistically, it's pretty hard to sort of compare where they were at this time in their career, mostly just because of how the game has changed. On one hand, you could say that Buddy Franklin had kicked 100 goals and had won a flag at this point, but on the other, you could say that defensive zones and defensive structures nowadays make it harder for teams to kick goals and harder for pure key forwards to dominate games. But just completely on the eye test, I think it's hard to go past Buddy Franklin. I think the flair, I think his ability to get up the ground, and I think just the consistency that he had and the fact that his teams were always able to go deep into the finals and he didn't get shut down by Toby Pig. Chris has asked, has there ever been a club that's done a proper rebuild and then actually won the flag? That is a great question considering how often teams are starting to rebuild. We're seeing the likes of North, we're seeing the likes of Richmond, we're seeing the likes of West Coast. Can we give hope to these fans? Does a rebuild actually work? Well, the answer is yes, they do, if you do them correctly. There have been plenty of teams that have rebuilt and gone on to win the flag. We think of the teams like Melbourne in the early 2010s who rebuilt, got those high draft picks, and that eventually became their 2021 premiership team. We think of the likes of Richmond who stuck with Damien Hardwick during that 2016 off-season period, and they go on to win 3 flags in 4 years. And then a pretty recent one that not many people understand or really give credit to was the Brisbane Lions. They were genuinely coming from rock bottom, and now they are becoming one of the most consistent teams in the AFL. But the common thread through all of these rebuilds is it takes probably 5, 6, 7 years to get from the bottom to the top, and you have to have elite level draft picks. You have to have the players that are genuinely going to change the club culture, change the way that you play. We're thinking of players like Christian Petrarca, we're thinking of players like Dustin Martins, we're thinking of players like Marcus Bontempelli, and not just drafting talent, but being able to attract and develop talent. So Brisbane did it really well with the likes of Josh Dunkley, Lachie Neale, and Joe Danaher. So can it be done? Yes. Is it hard? Absolutely yes. Can it go wrong? Yes. Lauren has asked, where does Dustin Martins' final series in 2017 rank all time? Just for that 2017 final series, we're talking about one of the greatest individual final series that we've ever seen. I'm going to expand it into that whole Richmond dynasty era and say that he is the best finals player we have ever seen. 3 grand final wins, 3 best on grounds, 3 Norm Smiths, and he completely changed the way that a lot of players play the game of football. Players like Harley Reid, the players like Jordan De Goey and Christian Petrarca, that all came from the success of Dustin Martin. He was damn good. Tom has asked, why do some teams press up so high when the ball's in their forward half? Let's get the whiteboard out. How about we get the whiteboard out? This red marker is going to signify the attacking team. So we're going this way. The black crosses, that is the defensive team. That is the team kicking out from fullback. So what we've seen in the olden days is teams play genuine one-on-one all over the field. So all of the teams attacking this way, this red marker, pretty much stood next to their man for decades and decades and decades and decades. You can't kick it more than maybe 60 meters. So to get from here to here, you're gonna say 2.5, almost 3 kicks. So why would you bother defending a bloke who can't get the football? Instead, you want to be defending the space where the football can actually go. So by pressing up the ground, you're taking away these short options for one, and you're forcing teams to kick long up the line. Instead of defending their man, they're now defending the space where the ball is going to be. And as we know, if you get more numbers around the football, you're more likely to win that football, to win that contest, to be able to get that turnover, to be able to repeat inside 50, and to be able to score more goals. So why do teams press up so high when the ball's in their forward half? It's essentially to create turnovers. Ben asks, why do coaches love uncontested marks so much? Some coaches absolutely love uncontested marks. Some coaches don't really like it that much. It depends on the game style and the system that you want to play for that specific game. But essentially the reason is when you take a lot of uncontested marks, that likely means that you're in possession of the football a lot more than the opposition, which means you control the game. You control the tempo. A lot of teams use uncontested marks to protect their defense and allow their defense to set up behind them. We see Brisbane do this a lot, and it's a really effective tactic for Brisbane when you have the players who can make those kicks, because it actually allows you to pinpoint targets through a defensive zone. And as we know, pretty much every team in the AFL at the moment plays some sort of defensive zone. So if you can get really high uncontested marks in the way that Brisbane does, that's a really good way to break those zones using uncontested marks. So it can sort of be used in different ways, but the most common way is to control the game, control the chaos, and essentially make sure that you dictate the way that the game is going to be played. Different Tom has asked, how important is winning clearances? Personally, I break this up into two. Winning stoppage clearances isn't as important as it used to be, but winning center clearances absolutely is. The reason winning stoppage clearances isn't as important as it used to be is the fact that defensive systems are so sound at the moment. So anytime there's a stoppage anywhere around the ground, you have the opportunity to set up your defensive zone, to set up your defensive wall. And as we see, a lot of scores at the moment are coming from turnover, coming from rebound 50s, where teams are allowed to set their defense up really well, maybe with an extra man behind the football. It's not as important to win those clearances, but on the other hand, center clearances are so important because they are the ones that provide territory to your team. And they also are pretty much the only way to get one-on-ones forward of the football. But also getting center clearances allows your team to get territory straight from the jump and allows your defensive system to set up in your front half. And as we know, front half turnovers are absolute gold because it allows you to get repeat inside 50, repeat inside 50, repeat inside 50, and eventually the down wall breaks and you kick a goal. Clearances are still absolutely important. Not as important as they used to be, and I would value center clearances over stoppage clearances any day of the week. Jack has asked, would the early 2000s Lions win the flag in today's game, or would they all get suspended in round one? They'd probably all get suspended in round one. But if those really early 2000s Lions team played in today's game, it's really hard to sort of compare errors, but they would probably be a very, 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 very good team. Going back and watching and listening and reading the stories about how well this team played and how dominant they were and the players that they had on their team, you'd find it pretty hard to not tip them to win the flag if they played in this era. Ashley asked, did Jeremy McGovern change the perspective of a modern day key defender? The simple answer, yes. It all comes back to this rise of the zone defense that we've seen before. Clarko's cluster turned into the Weagles web at the West Coast Eagles under Adam Simpson. And that Weagles web was essentially built as a funnel to funnel the ball into the path of Jeremy McGovern, to allow Jeremy McGovern to play as an intercept key defender. And now we're seeing modern day key defenders like Darcy Moore, like Harris Andrews, like Tom Stewart, and the rise of players like Mac Andrew, where they're expected to be these running, gunning, intercept players who can come off their man, read the ball in the air, and defend one-on-one. And Jeremy McGovern was one of the first to really almost perfect that craft. Lily has asked, will Michael Voss be fired by Carlton at the end of the season? That is a burning question at the moment, and honestly, I have absolutely no idea. And finally, Natalie has asked, who is the greatest AFL player of all time? Well, that is almost an impossible question to answer because each era has legends of the game, and it's really hard to compare era to era to era to era. There are a lot of different answers out there, from Gary Ablett Sr. to Gary Ablett Jr. to Wayne Carey. Some people value Dustin Martins Peak as the best player they've ever seen. And then some people value the impact of the game, like a Lee Matthews who dominated as a player and a coach. Pick whoever you want, because no matter who you pick, a lot of people are going to disagree with you. As always, feel free to subscribe if you like these sort of videos and breakdown videos on tactics and everything in between in the AFL space. Let me know if you want me to do another one of these videos. I'm happy to do it. But for now, I'll see you next time, probably tomorrow.